Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for this update on Jacksonville's response to COVID-19. Joining me for questions today is Director Mike Bruno with Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, Fire Chief Keith Powers, and our Emergency Operations Director, Steve Woodard. I want to start with some good news, and that is that our firefighters returned home on Sunday from helping our friends in the Panhandle combat the Santa Rosa swamp fire. I'm grateful for their selfless service and am glad they returned home safely. Fire Chief Powers is on the call and can answer any questions about their mission later in this briefing. This morning, the Florida Department of Health reported a cumulative total of 1,186 cases of COVID-19 in Duval County, 190 hospitalizations, and 29 deaths. Although there was an increase in case totals over the weekend, those were largely related to investigations at assisted living facilities. Our percentage positive test is at 3.4%, continuing the downward trend that we've been observing for the past month. You'll recall that the Department of Health and the National Guard, at the governor's direction, have been going into the nursing facilities and making sure they get this under control, contained, therefore more testing, which you will expect to see more cases as a result of that strategic work. In 2 months, it will be 2 months tomorrow since I declared a state of emergency for Duval County. And it's been a difficult 2 months for many in our community. Our country, community, and economy has been shut down, causing great pain to individuals and families throughout our nation. These shutdowns were based on the shock this virus caused to hospitals around the world. Healthcare officials and experts predicted it would happen here. They told us to plan for it to happen here, and we did. Those dire predictions never happened. Because of the shutdown and the disruption to our economy and daily life, the people of our country are understandably restless. I'm restless too, as is my family. With an entire economy, when an entire economy is abruptly shut down and lives are upended and the dire predictions don't come close, people will question decisions being made. And more importantly, they'll question future warnings. It's important to know this: the virus is here. It doesn't spread itself. People spread the virus. So as we reopen in these phases, let's be smart, let's be responsible. Consider wearing a mask when you're in close containment with people. Try to stay out of large groups and practice social distancing. While we move forward, we must be mindful and look out for one another. So many of our family members, friends, and neighbors are facing significant stress and hardships during this crisis. And not everyone is dealing with this stress in healthy ways. Since March 13th, Jacksonville Fire and Rescue Department has noticed a significant increase in 911 calls for overdoses over the same period last year. For example, from May 3rd to 9th last year, they handled 71 overdose calls. This year, they had 113. We've had 869 total call for overdoses since March 13, compared to 644 over the same period last year. If you know someone that's under significant stress and struggles with addiction, please reach out to them and let them know that you care. There is help available for those who need it. Our recovery resources page on the city website has a list of mental health and other services. You can access it at coj.net/recovery resources. While the data continues to demonstrate that we are making progress and we're taking steps to reopen our city and economy, we must continue to be safe and responsible. We started weeks ago by slowly rolling back executive orders and reopening our beaches to the public, and we're working with the governor to move forward in a smart and safe way. Last Friday, Governor DeSantis announced that barbershops, hair salons, and nail salons could reopen with enhanced safety precautions. Customers will be by appointment, no walk-ins. There'll be a 15-minute gap between clients to proper sanitation, no group appointments, and masks must be worn by all employees while performing their services. Restaurant and retail stores have been open for more than a week now and are doing their part to abide by the 25% indoor capacity thresholds set by the governor's executive order, and they are properly socially distancing outdoors. My wife Molly and I enjoyed dinner out this weekend. We also had another evening where we had oysters and some drinks out at the beach, and people were being responsible. They weren't on top of each other. It was very responsible behavior for these times that we're in. Last week, I talked about working with Councilman Becton to relax elements of our local ordinance code to support economic recovery for restaurants and other establishments. Tonight, I expect the City Council to pass that legislation, suspending the enforcement of our zoning code related to outdoor restaurant and retail activity. Tomorrow, I will direct my administration to move forward on this, providing these businesses additional flexibility for social distancing until the various regulations on these establishments are repealed. Effective Monday, May 18th, I am suspending my work from home executive order that requires employees that can work from home to do so. I'm removing the mandate, but I hope that employers and employees will continue to allow remote access for those with children and vulnerable populations and the ability to work productively from home. I've talked to a number of folks that have told me that their employees are going to continue in this form of work from home for the foreseeable future, and those that can, I think, is responsible behavior. At the city, my senior leadership team and I are mapping out a course and expect to reach out to employees in the next day or two and bring people back starting next Monday. As of next Monday, all of my executive orders will effectively be suspended. As it relates to the statewide order, I have made the case to Governor DeSantis on why Duval County is prepared to implement phase 2 in the very near term in a safe and responsible way. The governor is evaluating the data. We're having conversations about the proper timing to get people back to work and get them into phase 2 here in Jacksonville. I'm grateful for our relationship with the governor and his office and his senior staff and the collaboration as we navigate these times. As I've said, many individuals, families, and businesses are suffering in this crisis. My team and I remain focused on providing aid and assistance where we can. 2 weeks ago, Council approved our mortgage, rent, and utility relief program. Since then, we've provided over $11.5 million in assistance to citizens to help them pay their bills and stay in their homes. In addition, our small business relief program with ViStar has approved over 1,000 loans and provided more than $37.8 million to keep businesses running and citizens employed. Another major part of the path forward is quality data, and that is why we're working to enhance our testing capabilities throughout the county. Our testing capacity already exceeds what experts advise for a city our size, but we're working to do even more. Over the weekend, we implemented a testing center due to higher traffic at the Legend Center. We're using part of the CARES Act funding we received from the federal government to stand up additional testing locations throughout Jacksonville for a 6-month period. We will share more information on these sites as they become available and will be listed on our website, coj.net/COVID-19 testing. On that page, you'll find a full list, a map that can show you what testing locations are closest to your home. We're working hard to ensure that every citizen who wants to be tested can be. Before we go to questions, a few reminders. 7 o'clock tonight, make that call, check in with somebody, and just make a connection with them in a personal phone call. Thanks to everyone who's shared these stories on these nightly calls on social media. Remember to make your mark and fill out the 2020 census. A full and accurate count is critical to ensuring our community gets the federal funding we deserve for our schools, hospital, roads, disaster recovery, and more. It's only 10 questions and it'll take you less than 10 minutes. Go online to 2020census.gov to fill yours out today. And of course, if you need help, there are many resources available. Please visit coj.net/recovery resources, where my team is frequently updating a list of information about social services, financial relief, mental health counseling, trauma support, disaster loans, and more. With that, we'll take questions, and we'll start with Vic with WJXT.
Good afternoon, Mayor. If you could talk a little bit more about this plan to reopen these businesses, specifically the bars, the pubs. We've been getting a lot of feedback from them that they feel left out. And then also, if you could talk about the update. I don't know if we've gotten any more information about if to-go drinks are still legal or not, or where that's going to progress.
Yeah, so effective Monday, we will be under no executive orders in Duval County issued by us. They'll all be suspended. So everything that I've laid out of the court to be these last 8 weeks will be gone. We will be under a statewide executive order, a governor's order. And I am in regular communication with his team, spoke to him this morning personally about the things you just mentioned. Told him that we believe we're ready to go to phase 2 in short order. And he was glad to hear that. He's looking at the data. And as he looks at the data, he's making decisions about some of the questions you've just asked, which will be statewide decisions, which will include bars, gyms, etc. I know that he and his team are actively evaluating these things with data and medical professionals, and he's as anxious as anyone to get these things opened as other businesses are. In phase two, you can expect to see a number of things such as more occupancy for restaurants, retail. There's a whole host of other things that we haven't been able to do the last 8 weeks. I don't expect in the short term to be able to see arenas packed with people for concerts and events like that, but we're making progress. As it relates to your last question about the ability to take alcohol to go, yes, that is still in effect under a statewide order. Courtney with Action News.
Good afternoon, Mayor. So my first question for you has to do with the fireworks. People will be wondering what's going to be the plan for the 4th and when that decision will be made. And then just a second question, you were touching on it a little bit regarding phase 2, but businesses especially will want to know, is there a time frame from when we think we could be in phase 2 here in Jacksonville?
Y'all take your second question first. I want to go next week. Provided that the governor's team looks at all the data and determines that we can do that in a safe, responsible way. But we've had a month of downward trends in our percent of positives. We have we're just, I think we're ready to go to phase 2 next week, but we will obviously do that in collaboration and discussion with his office. They're looking at our numbers. They're discussing Northeast Florida, and they're grateful that we're in the position we're in right now. As it relates to fireworks, we're actively having those discussions now. I don't have an answer for you. What I can tell you is these decisions will be made in a way that it makes sure we're acting responsibly, that we are not putting people in situations that could spread this virus. Look, the virus is here. It's not going away, and it spreads by people. So we just, in the days ahead, we'll have an answer on fireworks. Amber with Action News.
Sure. Hey, Mayor. As you know, over the weekend, Governor Ron DeSantis issued an executive order that extends the ban on visitors to long-term care facilities for another 60 days. I know many groups and leaders are talking about plans on how to safely reopen after those 60 days. Is the city of Jacksonville planning to get in that conversation on how to reopen? Is there a task force together to take a look at that? And do you think visitors or family members should be allowed in nursing homes?
Well, a couple things. I support the governor's strategic move with public health officials, the National Guard, and the Department of Health to get ahead of the spread of this virus in nursing homes. We've seen in other parts of the country where they didn't do that. It's just been tragic. So they are going in. The reason we saw an uptick in cases over the weekend is because of the governor's strategic order and plan to get in and test these facilities. The other strategic thing that he did, there's this place right here in Duval County, is if someone tests positive in one of these facilities and they don't need to be hospitalized, they are moved to a facility. They don't go back to their existing facility where they can spread it. They go to a facility where there are others that have tested positive, so that stops and slows the spread. I can't imagine what family members are experiencing that can't go in and see their loved ones, nor the loved ones that can't see their family members. It's heartbreaking, but this gubernatorial governor's statewide order is done to protect people, specifically the most vulnerable, which are in these homes. Sky with WJCT.
Hey, Mayor. I understand that you've brought up time and time again that this isn't a police state and enforcement there is going to be enforcement, but you're trusting the citizens of Jacksonville. I wanted to ask either you or Director Bruno, has there been any enforcement? Has there been any calls for restaurants that haven't been operating at 25% or anything like that?
Before I turn over to Director Bruno, first let me say that I am aware that there have been some calls, and the ones that I've been made aware of, once somebody went in and said, hey, some crowding here. They were doing it unknowingly and are cooperating. Director Bruno, I'll let you take the rest of that.
So the Sheriff's Office has responded to some calls for service involving some of the regulatory issues related to the social gathering and stuff like that. In all of the situations that we've responded to, we've gotten great compliance from the community and the organizers of the event. So we've been able to disband any of those gatherings without any enforcement action. So we appreciate the community support, and we'll continue to work with the community just like they've worked with us.
Joe, last question. Joe with News for Jax.
Yes, hello. Yes, thank you, Mayor. I want to go back to assisted living facilities and nursing homes really quick. The White House task force was directing governors yesterday to order or advising ordering testing of every staff and resident in these facilities to further identify cases in these facilities. Is such a direction being considered in Jacksonville? If so, what do you think the effect of that is going to be?
The governor has ordered this statewide in conjunction with the National Guard and the Department of Health. Director Woodard, I'll let you follow up there on what other details you may have.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We just had a call with the state within the hour, and this is a program that they expect to have implemented in Jacksonville, understanding the importance of getting those staff members at those most at-risk facilities tested or retested. So that is something that we will be doing here and implementing with the Department of Health and National Guard at the test sites.
Thank you. And again, I'll just wrap up as back to these nursing facilities. As we look at where there's been so much tragedy and death around the country in these homes, as it's spread, our state, our governor and his team got ahead of this early and saw that as a very vulnerable place for people and the steps they're taking. So as you saw the increase in numbers of tests over the weekend, primarily related to nursing homes, related to the fact that more testing is being done, National Guard, Department of Health, if someone is positive and they aren't hospitalized, they go to another facility versus going back into the one they came out of so it doesn't spread like wildfire. So with that, thank you, everybody, and continue to be safe, responsible, consider wearing a mask, and look out for one another.